squeezes it forward. Vulnerable situation for the Lizard.
Should have been in front kick.
Play on is the call. Starcevic, Rayner, almost impossible to stop when he's in beast mode. The beauty of the beast. This game for the Sydney Swans. Rayner looking to change all of that. Oh, how good. In full flight, Cam Rayner.
The Swans, the crowd's right into this game.
Suddenly it's looking up to the pilling. Straight lines out of the middle. Hugh McCluggage. That one's gone the whole 90 yards. Most of the week we thought he wasn't playing. He thought he wasn't playing. But he's out there. And he's kicking the biggest of goals. Danaher worked under the ball. Rayner not far away. It's Archie. Oh, he's kicked it. The Gabba erupts as one. They are holding out for a hero. Warner or Heaney fight amongst themselves. The clock ticks down. And the Brisbane Lions crowd go nuts.
The Brisbane Lions fancast after round 19 against the Swans, a game that has been likened by Chris Fagan to Roger Federer taking on Rafael Nadal, and a game that a lot of people are calling a finals preview, perhaps even a grand final preview. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but the good news is Brisbane are now 7 on the trot, only lost 1 of their last 11, and now firmly entrenched in the 4. Would you bloody believe it? When we were 2-5, and the question was asked, oh, well, where do you realistically see the Lions finishing? I think I said we might be making up the numbers at best. 5th to 8th, but more likely 9th to 12th. Here we are.
Can I ask what I said?
I can't remember off the top of your heads, but I'm sure you've got a fond memory of what the words were.
I actually don't remember. I think I said 3rd.
Sure. Well, that's where we sit right now after another nail-biter of a game at the Gabba. Lions and Swans. What an absolute cracker. Hot day. We got a little bit of sunburn, actually, from sitting in my seat yesterday. And a big shout-out to Brad, who won our double pass to this game, actually. His first game at the Gabba. And what a bloody first game it was.
Yeah, if he's around, can we get some sort of, found footage of his, Brad's day out?
Oh, that would be good.
Kind of like the entertainer going in the background, him getting mugged out the back, running around, seeing some local stuff.
Would be nice,
a bit like Homer Simpson in Capital City or New York. Are they the same? Who knows? Make that up.
With all the pimps and the chuds.
Oh, yeah, the chuds. That's when the chuds came in, because there's plenty of chuds around Wollongabba.
Also an update from, do you remember last week in our questions, Vince hit us up with how many beers am I allowed to have at the Gabba before dinner? Yeah. 6. 6 beers is the answer, according to Vince. He got back in touch later in the piece.
Where did he have dinner?
We'll wait till next week, I guess, until when he gets back in touch.
That's the one thing I asked.
Don't forget, this is all thanks to Hop On Brew Tours and Crisp Communications. Don't forget to make sure you rate and review it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever. Leave us comments. Get in touch. Be our fancast, all the socials, all that sort of stuff. Check out the website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. And as always, just keep listening and provide us with any feedback you feel is necessary. Let's get into the game. And it was a week dominated by the MRO, the tribunal, and then, of course, the appeals board. What a mess of a week that whole situation was. When we recorded last week, we didn't know that Charlie was going to get suspended. We certainly didn't think it was going to get 3 weeks.
I thought you were some crackpot old fool. I was like, what are you talking about, man? That's not reportable. Are you out of your mind? Got to slightly correct myself, because I said he didn't pin any arms. He pinned one arm. Not 2, as is being... The other arm is trapped, but it's because old mate Duggan is trying to, He's not letting go of the ball. So, probably factored in, but... Yeah, some people were sort of saying it's one of those ones where it's how can something go from 3 weeks to no weeks? And I'm just my thought was that it's not reportable, and that's what they would argue. And eventually, it was some sort of legal magumbo that enabled them to do that. But between him and the Bedford one, I personally still also think the Gold Coast guy shouldn't be 3 weeks because
Alex Davies.
The mullet man from Port Adelaide goes in like a moron, doesn't protect himself. And to put it this way, I got the ball out in the living room and was teaching my partner Storm about protecting yourself and how you taught to go for the ball. She got it after about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
She understood why and how to do it and pretty much bowled me over. Because I went in a la you, Brooksy, at that training session. And she went in like me at that training session. And I nearly doubled over. But if someone that hasn't ever played the game can get it in 10 seconds, why are people just dangling their heads over? But
Because they're going to get a free kick. They're exploiting the rules. But at the end of the day, I don't know why Alex Davies thought he could appeal that one. I mean, surely once he saw Charlie Camerons and Toby Bedfords get thrown out, he would have walked into that appeals board going, well, I've got nothing here, because that was the most reportable of the three, except for bloody Malcolm Roses, who's got a cheap elbow to the head off the ball, and that gets 1 week. Riddle me that. Anyway, that's all last week's news. Let's get on to the game with the Swans. There was some changes. McKenna dropped the people's change. Shadow Brain held his spot, and we will get to Shadow Brain's performance later in the show, no doubt, because what a last quarter he had. A couple of clutch moments. But the other change, of course, was Logan Morris dropped, and Henry Smith made his debut. Now, ideally, you're not making any debuts in round 19 when you're looking to, I guess, still solidify your spot in the top 8, because it's definitely up for grabs. But I have been saying on this very podcast that he's been playing very well in the twos, knocking down the door. Didn't have the greatest debut, it must be said. He looked very, very nervous, but good to get him that exposure. Let's see if he holds his spot for next week.
I guess. I don't think he will.
No, it's not. Yeah,
I would be more surprised if he held a spot than I was that McKenna was dropped. So I just want to make clear last week when I was saying we should get used to the fact McKenna won't be dropped. Doesn't mean that I didn't want him to be dropped, although it was rested or whatever, managed.
Managed was a tough one. I mean, because he was happy to put omitted next to Logan Morris, but managed next to Connor McKenna, which was a strange one. And look, maybe
while still having him as an emergency.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. Maybe there is a little bit of tightness in the hamstring or whatever, but just say he was dropped, because we all know he was dropped, and Shadow Brain held his spot. And what a game Brainy had as well. Yeah.
Particularly in the latter stages. There was, we'll get to the fourth quarter, but yeah, it was good to see. I mean, I've been calling for it literally all year, the idea of like more defensive solidity in lieu of having that thrust off half back, just because I think the ability to defend is probably more important. And there were some pretty quiet Sydney boys in that team. Like some big names that went largely undamaging, if that makes sense. I know there were probably a couple like Isaac Heaney won his time back in terms of a couple of goals that he missed and stuff like that. But like, to put into context, the fact that they're like kind of most dangerous guy aside from Goulden was a dude that was allegedly like on one leg, which, make of it what you will.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Hayward was really good for them despite, and when he was limping around, I thought, this could be a bit of a game changer. And then Papley went off with that ankle as well, and then you look down to the sub-vest and it's Rampy getting subbed off, and you're like, this is all changing so quickly. And you think with one down on the bench, it was really hot. You think, all right, well, the conditions are in our favour here. We hopefully are going to be able to run this game out a little bit better than Sydney. Obviously got off to a cracking start, but not the only team to do that to Sydney. We've seen them reel that back in. Like, Geelong.
And quickly.
Yeah, Geelong, Adelaide, they both did it, and then they ended up losing by 6 or 7 goals. So that was definitely firmly in the back of my mind. I'm sure it was in the back of Fags' mind at quarter time. And then, it took, 4 minutes for them to close that gap, like, super quick, before we were able to sort of steady and half break even in the second quarter. And then the last 2 quarters were a bit of an arm wrestle. I think Sydney definitely let us off the hook a number of times in that third quarter.
As did we in the last quarter. So it's kind of tit for tat in that, as you were saying, the whole Feds versus Nadal. But I think we were talking about, was it James Rowbottom? He's the one with the PCL?
No, McInerney.
Oh, McInerney. So we were talking about McInerney being out, being like a lack of kind of grunt from their engine room, and Rowbottom being out as well was like, they just lacked balance in their midfield. And that said, like Taylor Adams and Luke Parker did pretty good jobs.
They did.
Taylor Adams.
They both did a really good job on Neil.
Yeah, so I think everyone probably thought that the other fella would go to Lockie, the old Melbourne dude.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one when I saw James Jordan go to the winger on Fletcher. I thought, okay.
I was going to call him Jason Jordan, but James Jordan. But yeah, like Neil was obviously quiet, and that Neil and Dunkley were both pretty quiet. But it's sort of a lot of these sort of things when you got big midfields, they're just kind of like cancelling each other out to a degree. So you're looking for things coming from elsewhere. And like early on in the piece, basically it was like Cam Rayner, Joe Danaher, and Zach Bailey that were kind of running the ship for the first quarter. You know, Zach Bailey kind of showed us flashes of like what we want to see more of, which there's elements of frustration to that. I thought he had some really nice defensive efforts throughout the game. Not a huge output game, and there's probably a couple of shots at goal. Another one that he just missed.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, man. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, you used to just eat that shit for breakfast. Not the case with Zach Bailey, but yeah, the first quarter could really not have gone any better.
No, it was pretty complete. And Joe, 3 first quarter goals. I don't know what Sydney were doing, just leaving him open there for a number of times as well. And I think we obviously tried to expose their lack of height in the back line. It was pointed out to us. I think they've only got 2 players above 190 centimetres, McCartan and Blakey. And it's not exactly like Blakey is a lockdown defender, but they still managed to find a fair amount of intercept marks back down there. So, but yeah, Joe,
there was some frustrating elements of, I think Cal Archie was almost trying to do like a diffusing job on Blakey, at least early on in the first half. But it seemed like our outlet kit was going to Cal, and it was like, dude, what are you doing? Don't kick it to him. He's got Blake, like he's playing on Blakey to try and nullify Blakey. Don't kick it to him because there's a mismatch in height, you peanuts. So, particularly in the second quarter, that kind of reared its head. But yeah, the second quarter was pretty weird because they obviously got a few quick goals, but then like we wrestled the momentum back pretty well and just sort of were able to sort of stop that run of goals. And I know they kicked 3 more towards the end of the quarter, but like that's, I think, a big kind of improvement on some other times in the season where we've just had like strings of 8 goals in a row or 7 goals or 6 goals in a row where you just like, stop, please stop. And although there's, you know, it'll still go down as a 6 goal to 1 quarter, but it could have been a lot worse.
It could have. It definitely could have been better as well. The midfield just sort of not went to sleep during that quarter, but they certainly had their colours lowered in the second quarter for sure. But, you know, that's going to happen, unfortunately. At least it wasn't a complete... It didn't carry on, and we were able to grind out the second half.
Yeah, I said to you in the pre, I said, man, like, a good way to nullify Errol Goulden is to stand the mark. Because there were 2 moments in that quarter where, you know, I get it, and I understand, particularly in the back half, when someone like a mark's taken and you drop out of your 5 meters and you just stay off the mark. But when you're like 60 meters out from goal and Errol Goulden takes a mark in the middle of the field,
yeah,
just stand the mark, because he kicked 2 like 20, 25 meter darts straight over where the mark would have been. And it's like, oh, just stand the mark. Like, make him work a little bit harder for that.
It's just not really a thing anymore.
It's got to be. It's got to be in certain areas. And like, I know I harp on about me soccer, but it's like, it's okay to stand off the mark for the first half, the front half, and then as soon as the ball comes into your territory, snap onto them.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to have the same defensive mantra or ideas the whole way across the field. And we see that in Aussie rules anyway. But like, just don't stand the mark until a point in the field and then go, okay, here we're going to. If it's in the corridor, you know, loads of mitigating circumstances. But yeah, so that was my bugbear. I just wish they'd stood the feckin' mark.
Yeah, no, I understand. Especially someone like Gordon whose ball use is obviously elite. And look, him and Warner ended up having pretty good games. It was actually, you know, we all know Chad Warner's bloody good at footy, but to see him, you know, in person, that first goal he kicked, it was like off 2 steps, went through post height from 50. It's just like, wow, this guy is powerful, hey? And I thought Dunkley did a pretty good job on him across the game, all in all. And he was out on his feet by the end of the game, Dunks.
Yeah, there'll be some tired boys because I think, he's a running machine. But to keep him to 20 disposals and a goal, like, you'd probably take that at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, I think so.
And I know he's not a super duper high disposal player, but still, yeah, you got to kind of pick your poison, I guess, with this team.
Now, Zorko finished with most touches on the ground. I thought he's...
Scary moments.
Yeah, he definitely had some...
Early on.
Yeah. He
When he got crushed.
Yeah, his back half of the game was definitely much better than his first half. There was some kicks there that he tried to bite off, and obviously there was a few turnovers in amongst all of that. So he had a bit of a mixed bag in terms of a game, but I think all in all it was a pretty good one.
Well, I'm normally pretty harsh on Zorko, and I didn't really notice anything wrong with this first half. So if that's anything to show by. I think it was the second quarter, we just couldn't keep the ball.
Yeah. We couldn't get our hands on it.
No, we couldn't get our hands on it. We couldn't take marks. And that was the main part of the kind of arresting or, wrestling back the momentum. But Zorko was great. It was definitely scary when he got landed on.
Yeah.
And was kind of grabbing at his ankle and his knee and his hamstring and his back and his beak all at once. And you're like, oh no, this is what that guy said weeks ago. He's one calf away from retirement. It's like, shit.
I think there was an element of shithousery and just like trying to take some time off the clock and get some setup going. Because he was evidently fine.
Yeah, fine is a sliding scale, but definitely it wasn't late in the game, Zorko, with his cramp.
No, he had some really good clutch moments, and there were some moments pointed out on First Crack as well from Kingy, from not just Zorko but others as well, which was really good. McInerney, Oscar, Big Owie had a big game as well. Huge game against Grundy, had a number of clearances himself. These are the games that, we all know Oscar is a great ruckman, and as we've said, he's a sort of top 5 to 10 ruckman, probably working his way closer to that top 5 this year, especially since we've been on our streak. But it's always the standout ruckman, the Grundys, the Gawns, that he has let himself down. But I thought he handled himself really well against Grundy on the weekend.
Yeah, it was mentioned on commentary that I think it might even have been Brownie that was like, "Oh, he's had some pretty good games against Grundy in the past." I'm like, when? Like, he played him a bit last year in the Melbourne game, and I thought Grundy was quite a bit better in the lights out game after Gawn went down with his knee. And then it's like, before then, you're like, what, the 2 years when he was injured for Collingwood? And then the other ones where we would play like Steph Martin and Archie Smith on Grundy or Nat Nui or whatever back in the day. I'm like, I don't remember. But that said, I got a brain the size of a peanut. So I thought Owi's form against Grundy kind of set the tone for the entire team almost.
Yep.
So whenever Owi was like holding his own or standing up, we were playing well. And when Grundy was getting on top, we were struggling. Like, it was in a microcosm, it was right there. And I think largely he broke even plus, I'd say.
Yep. Yeah, he definitely...
which is great because...
Definitely gets some, like, when it comes... And I guess that's where Oscar sort of gets other ruckmen, is his work around the ground is fine. It's not elite like a Gawn, but his clearance work is a lot better than most ruckmen.
Yeah, when I think there was some of that, like, top 5 ruckman, it was kind of like David King's, like, fantastical element of the week was just that he got his hand on Champion Data's clearance/post-clearance ruckman ratings for the week, which was funny because your mate Hoyne talked about it and talked about Lachie Neale's kicking too, so you were feeling a bit smug about that.
Oh, yeah.
But Hoyne talked about it in, like, more depth, and Kingy just kind of gave it, like, the Cliff Notes version and just rolled with it on every show he was on.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm curious to see where Owie would have sat in both of them, because I would kind of wager that he would have been in that 5 to 10 range in both.
Yep.
But anyone that has access to Champion Data, let us know, because I'm curious.
I think
Owie's, not quite elite in terms of, because obviously he wasn't in the top 5 either. But he'd have to be close, at least at clearance. And I think his work around the ground and his, like, hitting of the scoreboard and his marking and stuff, like, given he was a bloke that couldn't take a mark for the first 4 weeks of the season and last year, doing pretty all right.
Yeah, no, 100%. He's not alone since the bye where we've hit this streak of players that have improved dramatically, and Rayner's probably another one of those that we'll have a chat about later on, probably in the votes. Don't know. Hard week to vote this week, so I'm rattling off players that I thought could have etched a vote along the way. I thought Eric's game was pretty good as well. Just his work around the ground and creating contests was just amazing. Like, it's just the stuff that this is one of those games where you look at his impact on the scoreboard and go, oh, Eric didn't have the greatest game, but at the ground, his ability to bring the ball to ground, his work up the field was amazing. It's just the stuff that not a lot of people see often enough.
No, it's definitely people don't see anything of the sorts if they're not at the game, because it's sort of like the thing with Dwayne Russell. Once you know he's not at the ground, it's bleedingly obvious.
Yeah.
But once you in person see what Eric Hipwood does around the ground, you your brain takes care of it on the TV for you, where you're like, he must have run from 10 miles away. So it kind of puts a lot of context into the way that he plays. But on the TV, his game didn't look particularly good. And that's what most people go off. And that's where people are sort of saying, hope he gets suspended for that thing. And it's like, what? Did you not remember what happened last time? Played Brandon Ryan. So fickle. But yeah, people seem to think he is the doggest dog of the football world from, tunneling Nick Blakey, but is what it is. We were talking before that, you think it doesn't really pass the eye test. I think there's a grey area because it's not a marking contest and tunneling is within the bounds of a marking contest. So,
I mean, just you look at that action, you think that's a free kick. It's got to be a free kick, but evidently it wasn't. We got a goal out of it to Cam Rayner. So,
well, the thing is, I'd say why? Why is it a free kick? What rule does he break?
I guess it just falls into either taking the legs. It just looks like taking the legs, pushing the back, tunneling, call it what you would. It just, if the umpire blew the whistle and said free kick to Nick Blakey, I don't think anyone would have been surprised.
Yeah, but so my argument to the contrary would be it's basically a hip and shoulder to his hip.
Mm.
So it's like he just happens to be in the air, and because it's not a marking contest, it can't be front on contact really. It can't be pushing the legs. So that's what I mean by there's a grey area, and I think I thought Charlie Cameron would be fine. I think Hipwood is fine.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to get suspended or anything or reported, but I mean, who knows? Once again, it's 10-10. We don't know what's going to happen, so we'll wait and see. Maybe it's 3 weeks.
Yeah. Shut up.
Darragh Joyce, another great game, especially in that last quarter when Harris was off with that HIA for however long, 15, 20 minutes. He more than held his own. Had another great game, Darragh. He let one go through for Amadi in a one-on-one marking contest, but other than that, he was really solid. Just his kicking is fine. He's not biting off too much. He's either taking the cheap little ones or down the line. And that's all you really need from him at this stage.
Yeah, I've got no complaints. For a guy that's essentially fourth or fifth in line, let's say he's metaphorically moving up that list a little bit, I'd say. At least to 4 at this point. I don't know. He's available. But I think he's got a good level of fight to him. He's got that bit of Irish fight to him, which is a little bit kind of harder at the contest, harder at the ball than sometimes Payne can be, because Payne, for all of his size and all of his physicality, is a little bit like, I guess, kind of a bit classy in the way he kind of goes at the contest.
Yeah.
Good in a one-on-one, but he's not a pack breaker. He's not going to bowl everybody over. And I think that's kind of quite a good balance for Harris and stuff like that. Yeah, some people saying that the second quarter wasn't good. I don't really buy into that. It's just the start of the second quarter was basically what I'm saying in terms of we could have every defender that's the greatest one of all time playing, and they still would have kicked those 3 goals just by the nature of what it is. So Darragh Joyce, big tick for me. Happy with that. Very happy.
And of course, Shadow Brain, who we spoke about earlier, held his spot at the expense of McKenna, and he's just slotted in at this point. He kept Answorth out as well. Answorth was available, who ended up playing in the 2s. So Brain held his spot. He'll hold it again, I would imagine. I can't imagine that backline changing for next week unless somehow Jack Payne's available, and even then you don't want to rush him back with a dodgy foot. So yeah, Shadow Brain, especially that last quarter, those 2 huge intercept marks, and then to have the Testicales to bite off a daring kick in the middle of the ground as well. Yes, Connor McKenna's got those audacious kicks, but there's no way I can picture Connor McKenna taking those 2 intercept marks. So huge tick to Shadow Brain, and a big shout out to him for, he's obviously his best game of his career and his second full game as well.
Could he be on the cards for a Rising Star nomination?
I mean, very possibly. Very possibly. It would be nice, wouldn't it?
If they're going to go by moments and impact, I think I don't know whether we win that game without him. And I think that's what I might have stolen that from you. So if I did, I'm sorry.
No, I don't. Very possibly not.
But I think the back line, really, they all stood up quite handily when Harris was down in the rooms getting his brain checked. So after he got absolutely sat on by Amadi and then kneed in the head needlessly. Yeah. So how good. But yeah, like across the board, there was some quite, like I thought Cal was, obviously doing a bit of a job on Blakey and was quite quiet in an output sense, but then bam, kicked a snap that, as in his own words, just kept going.
He just flew off his left shoe and it just went, whoop, and then missed the one that was the gimme. Like he just, and Fags addressed it in the post match. He said, "Oh, the crowd was so loud. Cal thought someone was on his hammer, so he rushed the kick. When he had oodles of time, he could have taken a bounce, walked it right into goal, basically."
They Bradbury'd over each other, like behind him, and it's just some funny moments in my household, but. Yeah, like I think just across the board, it's one of those games where you can't have everybody playing super well in a game like this. It's just not possible. You look at it and there were some quiet performers, but who cares? We won.
Another funny moment. And just quickly, Danaher's ruck work over the last, I don't know, I guess this stretch. He's adopted the Tom Hawkins of, and he can't keep getting away with it. Just big shove in the back, grab it out of the ruck and have a ping at goal. And he's got a couple of goals from it that way. But there's been some heinous shoves in the back that he's been getting away with. And he's really just adopted that Tom Hawkins method that has plagued us for so many years in the forward 50 ruck craft.
Well, let's just say he's getting away with ones where we heard, Lockie Neals had 4 free kicks given to him at stoppage. And let's bear in mind, one of them was Cal Ward punching him and one was Pendlebury punching him.
Yeah, that's true.
So he got one today. So that's 3 free kicks for holds at stoppage where he is held all the time. And I know that they're all doing it anyway. So maybe Dana has a bit of balance for that.
And how about Charlie Cameron taking a ruck contest?
Funny. I like the interaction between him and Danaher afterwards.
yeah. Of that, I'm not doing that again. You're back up.
The little pat on the head. To like, good job. Like you've now ticked that one off your weird footballing list. You've got a hit out. I don't think he actually got a hit out, but he just kept the ball away. But some funny ones. So just some ruck contest stuff. I understand. We can't expect all of the Gabba crowd to know all of the nuances of the rules, but just for anyone that doesn't know. When you tap the ball, it goes out on the full. That's a free kick.
Yeah.
If it bounces, it doesn't. But that said, Grundy is definitely looking for those repeat stoppages where he's basically spiking the ball into the ground to get it to roll over, to get repeat stoppages, to draw down time and like take control. And like, I haven't seen a ruckman do it as blatantly as that.
Yeah.
And as consistently to try and, wrestle back momentum and stuff. So is that something the AFL needs to look at?
I mean, possibly, probably. They're always looking at stuff they can fuck around with.
Given the fact that Harris gave away a free kick for a bouncing ball and what was essentially a bit like the tunnelling one.
Yep.
Bouncing ball and he punched it into Rosie and it was like, not Connor, but just generally Rosed. Gave away a free kick for insufficient intent. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, fair, but can we not have Grundy just
swatting it out,
hitting the ball out all the time? So... is what it is. Do you want to do some votes?
Yeah, let's do some votes for hoponbrewswhois.com.au. Tough week to vote for this week because there was a number of players that I thought were worthy of the 2 and 1. I thought McCluggage was the obvious standout for his game for me, so he gets my 3. Rayner the 2, especially his first half. He's having some strong first halves. His last month, sort of 5 weeks, has been really good. He's been building really, really nicely. And Harris gets my 1 this week. And a number of players could have snuck into the votes, as we've already spoken about here. So your votes for hoponbrewtours.com.au. Book yourself a half for a full day tour.
Well, they were the same as yours.
Really? There you go.
Yeah. But Harris was so important in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And we didn't even really talk at all about Hugh and Rayner. So let's talk about Hugh and Rayner. I thought McCluggage had a weird, sleepy start to the game. He was in the first quarter. He wasn't particularly good. He kind of turned the ball over a few times and was kind of caught on his heels. And I was like, what's happened? What are you doing, man? Wake up. And then he woke up and was great.
How about those and those 2 goals to kickstart the last quarter, especially that just ridiculous barrel out of the middle that just went through.
Under pressure, just the bounce. Everything all kind of worked because he just, I like the sharking of the tap and the handball. It was great. But the first goal was pretty unbelievable. And they kind of set a bit like a soccer shot where it sort of went under the goalkeeper and stuff like that. But there's not too many games where he's kicked 3 goals.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
And for a midfielder, that's pretty good. Pretty bloody good, I got to say. And Rayner, he kind of took control when we needed it. We needed a spark and we needed something to happen. And Fagan touched on it and said that the role that we've kind of figured out finally for him is kind of working. So he didn't want to go into too many details on it because of sort of secret squirrel stuff. But
I mean, it can't be that secret, is it? He did sort of let on forward with a bit of mid, but he's
maybe it's like the perfect ratio. It's like the Fibonacci sequence of his time in the midfield has to be like a perfect, geometric whatever the hell. So depending on the number of kicks or tackles or broken tackles, it's like, 3.742 minutes in the midfield for you. Cool. Maybe it's that.
I mean, apart from his scoreboard impact, he had 2 goal assists as well, but his tackling, 7 tackles, led the way across the field as well.
He smashed Goulden, and it was great.
Yeah, just a fantastic game.
It was really stark to see him standing next to Goulden. He made Goulden look like an absolute child when they were at stoppage together. I was like, "Oi, good luck, Errol." And he got at one point, so it was great. And Harris, Harris to get a vote, having been off the field for a good amount of time, his just inset marks and stuff and his commanding of the game was really, really good.
And he just, those ones he pulls out, he's just got no right to mark it and he just sticks a random, arm out and he'll grab it. It's just, it's very Dustin Fletcher, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the robot man.
Yeah. The twos, very similar in scoreline, in fact, and it was just our straight kicking that kept us in it for the twos. 15-7, 97 to 13-14 for the Swans, 92. Now, Swans got out to a pretty decent lead early on. They went in at quarter time.
6-goal lead, right?
Yeah. And then we just, the twos just sort of chipped away at it as the game went on. Your mate, Jackson Pryor, how one of the great games, 33 disposals, 33 kicks.
Jeez.
Not a single. He's gone the full Kevin Bartlett, not a single handball to be seen, but had a great game, a really good game. Logan Morris in his first game back in the twos for a long time as well. He just looked so much better having that AFL experience. He looked so much more confident. He looked like he had so much more time. And he looked like he'd taken that experience back down to the VFL for him. 4 goals, 22 touches. He even had a hit out, a couple of tackles, 9 marks. Really good game for him. And Darcy fought a huge game as well as the number 1 and sole ruckman in the VFL. This is normally there's Henry Smith or Caelan Lane rolling around in the twos there as well to share the ruck load, but Darcy Fort took it all on himself. Had a fantastic game. Jared Lyons, fine. Noah Answorth had another good game back in the twos. Dev was a bit quiet, so I'm not sure if he played a full game. I only saw bits and pieces. Reece Torrent kicked a great goal, and Will McLaughlin ended up with 3 for the game as well. So another hard-fought win for the twos, but they just keep, like the seniors, just keep winning at the moment. So keep it on.
Both ascending the ladder, as it were. Now, it's good to hear. I heard they kind of got down, 36 points, and then came back and had a win. And
yeah, another nail biter.
Yeah. I mean, Jackson Pryor is kind of funny because it's sort of a bit good luck. Speaking of, he's kind of the Darragh Joyce of the half back line. He's as far down as you can kind of get. So 33 kicks, lots of metres gained, one can assume.
Not measured in the VFL.
Do they?
No.
Yeah.
bit of a pisser, but you'd have to imagine it would be right up there.
If we can assume this, so 33 kicks times, but let's not say we did.
I'm not going to go into that. All right, are you making any changes for the next game against the Suns at People's First Stadium?
Yes, I am.
Smith out, Morris in?
That is exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bit of a shame for Henry to have half a game and then go straight back to the twos. I think his nerves just got the better of him. But as I said at the start of the show, like ideally you're not making debuts in round 19. You want your best team settled by now as we head into finals. But yeah, I'm probably making the same change.
I felt a little bit bad for Smith because he was making good space and he was getting into good positions, but like whenever he got the ball, it just completely stifled any momentum. And the game was basically too hot. And it's not him, it's the fact that basically every game remaining in the season is going to be a hot game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a hot one, as Rob Thomas once said. So they're all a hot one.
Suns are going to look a pretty different team to the one we faced earlier in the year as well. No Tuke Miller, no Alex Davies, obviously. Ainsworth is gone for the season.
Yeah, but they've got guys like Bodie Yulden running around. That guy's awesome.
Yeah, they've obviously got talent on their list, and they are obviously formidable at home. So that is going to be a bit of a worry in itself. But as we know, it is pretty hard to go a whole season winning every game at home. We were not lucky last year to do it, but it was definitely...
It was an outlier.
Yeah. So you have to think they're going to drop one. Hopefully it's this week.
Who else have they got at home?
I don't know.
Find out.
I haven't looked too far into the Gold Coast fixture, if I'm honest.
I will. Okay. So they've got us and then they've got Melbourne in round 23. So let's hope they lose to us because don't waste your loss against Melbourne, at least.
Yeah, that'd be nice to continue the downfall for Melbourne.
But yeah, Suns, they were pretty... I mean, did you watch the Giants-Suns game at all?
No, only bits after the fact.
It was like pretty weird. It was super windy, like really windy. It was like a crossfield breeze. And like Ben King harnessed his greatest Max King. And like his ball drop was just not... He'd like dropped the ball. And by the time it got from his like gigantic hand all the way to his gigantic foot, it had shifted like half a foot and he'd like kick it off his shin and stuff like that. It was unbelievable. And then the Giants kicked 14 goals 5 in like the wind.
Wow.
So funnily enough, Suns more scoring shots. 6 goals 14 to 14 goals 5. And they lost by 39 points.
Wow. That's what we'll do.
But like they played all right. It was weird, like hearing how kind of bad they are across the board in terms of like, you know, their mids and their output and stuff like that. Kind of, they seemed down, but not that much down. So that's all I'll say about that. And they also got 10 more free kicks. Jeez. God, life really wanted them to beat the Giants.
Well, I mean, yeah, just as they've got to lose one at home, surely they've got to win one away at some point, the Suns. So I guess we'll see. They've got West Coast at some point, so maybe that's the one.
Pretty good round of footy, all things considered, like go to woe.
Yeah. Yeah, we've moved up a spot, which is great. But still...
Yeah, well, we had so there's a couple of things, you know, you've obviously got Essendon losing to Adelaide and Geelong getting absolutely destroyed by the Bulldogs.
That was a strange one.
Yeah, I mean, between Geelong and the Western Bulldogs, I just don't really trust either of those teams. And I don't know why I would trust them. Like, I'm not giving them my money.
No, but they are flaky.
Yes.
I love how Geelong was wearing the retro kit as well, and they went the retro weather, like the 1970s weather with the big mud patches all over the field.
Yeah, it was a bit of a throwback, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, it seemed like they had a curtain raiser being played there like before, so a bit of probably better judgment given the weather we've had down here has been windy and wet, and so they'll probably want their time again. Hawthorn killed Collingwood.
Yeah, they are scary, are they not?
They are, and I just think that they're like kind of a weird all eyes on them. Like, I just wanted to see Ginnivan play Collingwood. I got to see that. Like, I've got to make time to watch that this weekend.
Didn't he have one?
And it was so funny. It was so good. And like, It's amazing to think that less than a year ago he was a premiership player for Collingwood and he's getting like booed out of the building for nothing. Yeah, fair enough. His disciplinary stuff was like poor or whatever, but he didn't choose to leave. They kicked him out.
Wow, it was a bit of both, I think.
Yeah, but you can't like be like, yeah, nah, we're going to get Lockie Schultz in and then be like, you're out, and then get angry at him for it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the same way where I'm like, why would any Lions fan boo Ben Keys?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think they do. So you can imagine that Jennifer would have had a chip on his shoulder, but he was just a smug bastard about it, and I loved every second of it.
All right, we've gone way off track. Let's correct things here. Let's get to some questions for Crisp Communications, because we've got a few, of course. Loz simply says, what will they title the documentary?
There and Back Again. A Hobbit's Tale by Chris Fagan.
Oof. Work in progress, that one.
Obviously, you're not a Lord of the Rings fan,
I
JB,
am.
I'm assuming.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I've seen some films.
Because I've slipped a few things by you this season. You have not paid attention.
I'm okay with that. I'm sure the people that know are enjoying your sneaky little references.
There and Back Again is a perfectly cromulent title. They got you with that one, didn't I?
See, you throw in a Simpsons reference, I'm all about it. I mean, just quickly, the AFLW team has got a documentary at the moment through the website, which is fun to watch.
What's that one called?
Against All Odds or Against the Odds or something like that.
Not There and Back Again?
Not There and Back Again. Because that just reminds me of that bullshit Melbourne documentary that they made a couple of years ago.
I don't remember that.
It was called To Hell and Back or something. And that's all it reminds me of.
What, To Hell being COVID?
I don't know what it was all about. I can't even remember if it was during their premiership year or after or before or what.
Was Hell them getting those two really bad draft picks? Picking wrong? That was their definition of hell. Next question.
Peter says, is it worth a quick trip to Vegas over the bye weekend before finals?
No.
All right. Neil, not a question, just a comment. How good has our final quarter professionalism been recently? We seem to grind out these narrow wins, being the odd goal, and then control the finish. Park the bus very well, loving it. And it's obviously, I mean, after what happened in the grand final last year, you'd have to think, and seeing the way Collingwood went about their season last year, game management, time management, and clock management obviously had to be on the agenda. And it's worked for us, especially in the last couple of weeks where we've had some close finishes.
Yeah, I think it's like it was okay last year, but they've almost like evolved on it this year because, you know, obviously the Melbourne game was a catastrophe last year. But in between that and the grand final, there was some quite good closeouts.
Yep.
Probably more done on individual stuff rather than system, I'd say. Like Fremantle, we had Joe Dano with some like massive tackles, and Adelaide and St Kilda were like a bit of a nail biter in the back half of last year. I actually looked through and I was like, shit me, there's like a lot of close games there. But yeah, I think in terms of team and structure and the way that we're doing it is a little bit more concerted, I'd say.
Yeah. And Fags addressed that in the post-match as well. He said, you know, we wanted to create as many stoppages as we possibly could in the dying moments. Very much like what Collingwood did last year in that prelim and all that sort of stuff. So,
I just want to interject my own question. So I've been meaning to talk about it for about 8 weeks, but I keep forgetting and I forgot to write it down somewhere. We're pretty sure that Chris Fagan and Clarko they don't want a bar of Mark Robinson on 360.
Well, 100%.
Because they're the only two coaches that haven't been on 360.
Yes.
This year. And Clarko was on the couch last week.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting because he had my favourite Fox Footy guy, Ben Dixon, on the couch.
Or Coco, as Clarko liked to call him.
Doodle. Which makes any show instantly significantly more watchable, particularly when he's standing in for Gary Lyon, but whatever. Gary Lyon will hopefully be back with the premiership window.
I'm sure he will
tonight. But yeah, like, it's a bit of a shame because we get everybody else, but yeah, no Lil Faggy on 360. But I actually think, unpopularly, that Mark Robinson has been on absolute fire this year in like a good way. He's been so like hilariously watchable and like kind of on the money most of the time. But maybe it's just me.
It could just be you. He's all right. don't love or hate Robbo. He's just sort of there to balance out Jared and his sort of nerdy
Dryness.
weirdness. Live, Cal is the best utility in the AFL. Not a question, just a statement.
Yeah, hard to argue. Kept Blakey pretty bloody quiet, I got to say.
We did. Ross, is Zorko just lifting the team on his little 170centimetre frame and willing them to finals? Sure, he misses a couple of tenths a game, but what would we be doing without him?
Hard to argue.
Yeah.
He's grown. He's definitely grown into the role.
Yeah, 100%.
I was so skeptical early on. I was like, oh my God. But it really is the best of all worlds at this point in time.
I'm going to save Bren's question because I think it's worth a fairly good discussion at the end here. James Barron, should Logan Morris come straight back in for the Suns game? I think we've already addressed that with a probably yes.
Big thumbs up.
Yep. Emma, loving the never give up attitude, determination, tenacity across the park. It is paying dividends.
Yeah, I agree. It's good. And we're seeing a bit more from some players that we kind of would hope to see more.
JC, why did we choose to kick into the sun a number of times, forcing turnovers? Why wouldn't this be discussed in the huddle? There was a number of times where you could definitely see that sort of stuff was happening, and players that weren't seeing the ball to the very last moment. They were trying to guard their eyes, and it would lead to a turnover. But at some point, you've got to realise that it's the best or only available option. You just have to back your teammates into work around the conditions, and even if they're not going to take the mark, they're in enough space to hopefully gather and go from there.
Yeah, it almost seems like you could use it as a strategy, a la Cormac McLagan. Another one for anybody that
fucking what?
That's that. I'll leave that there for anybody else. But flying out of the sun or using the sun as a weapon, as it were, could have been a thing.
Cormac.
Good old McLagan. Cormac McLagan.
All right, and Bren's question, and probably worth a little bit of a discussion here. Thoughts on our run home and how many games we'll win and where you think we'll finish at the end of the regular season. Now, obviously, I touched on this earlier. After the 2-5 start, I had us back end of the 8 or top end of the bottom end of the ladder. That's obviously dramatically changed over the last 11 weeks, and top 4 is well and truly on, maybe even top 2. What I will say is in our last 5 weeks, we've got Suns away, St Kilda away, Giants at home, Collingwood away, Essendon at home. So 3 away, 2 at home. The Gold Coast game you can call away if you like. At least it's in the same state. There's no flights involved. Still get to sleep in your own beds, all that sort of gear. I would say that it might not be the worst thing to drop a game in the lead up to finals. How we do that will probably be the issue, but I would rather drop one in the next few weeks than in first week of finals or obviously in an elimination scenario in finals. So it wouldn't be the worst thing. I'm not saying, obviously it would be ideal to just keep winning. I did say last week that we would need to win either the Swans game or the Collingwood game away if we want to get top 4, so we've done that. It doesn't mean that the last 5 are. There's obviously some winnable games on paper, but they all present different challenges as well.
Sound like Jared Waitley with your nerdiness there. Simply for me, I think we'll lose one, but I don't want to. I don't think us winning all of our games is going to be a detriment to us. And if it's the difference between playing the first final at Gabba and the first final at the MCG or in Sydney, I think you're looking at a magnitudinal thing of there's more chance of losing playing at the SCG or at Melbourne. But yeah, I think one of them, I think we could still lose one and finish second. But who knows? The easiest run in is Geelong.
Yeah, they've got a fucking layup.
They've got to play basically nobody. And the rest of them are all in those 8-point games.
Yeah.
So it's really it's in our hands now. And although we're sitting still 2 points behind Carlton, Carlton have still got to play some pretty decent teams, as do we.
Yeah.
But traditionally, we're pretty good against, the Giants. We've been good against St Kilda. Who else are we playing? Suns, we're normally pretty good. But they're hard games.
They're all hard games. The Giants, Sam Taylor will probably be back by then. What sort of form he's in, I don't know. I think he'll either come back this week or next week. St Kilda, at Marvel is a different prospect. As you said, we traditionally match up well against them, but Ross Lyons come out and said that he's happy to...
Wants to win every game.
Oh, yeah, happy to ruin a few finals teams.
Like, imagine how good... Like, imagine this. So imagine we win our next 3 somehow, and we come up to playing...
Collingwood at the
MCG to solidify a top 2 spot.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Like, and then we can do whatever against Essendon kind of without the fear of what's happening. But, like, I think that would be so symbolic if we beat Collingwood at the MCG to solidify, like, to A, knock them out of finals well and truly, and to B, up to it. That'd be so good. That's like dream come true shit.
Yeah. Now that is probably the one game I really do want to win, do want to show up for, and win well. Because the narrative of Brisbane at the MCG is still there for, simpletons. That
I don't know why. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't know why either, but we've already won there once this year. If we can win another one, that's 100% at the MCG this year, and, ideally.
We only lost the grand final by 4 fucking points.
I know, but people just like to latch onto things that they don't really know. So that's one I want to win. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I do reckon we'll drop 1. We might even drop 2. Like, who knows? Who knows the way this season's going? Anyone's winning on any day. So all we can keep doing is just showing up and playing who we've got in front of us. And the Suns at home is obviously a tough enough task. They got us there last year well, and they've not lost one at home this year. So hopefully we're the first.
Yeah. So looking again at last year, like the lead into finals last year, we needed to really pull our finger out, and we did. Like, our form heading into finals last year was pretty phenomenal. Which we dropped 1 game, I think, and it was that Suns game.
Yeah. Which
is so strange. But then we went on a tear of 6 in a row, 7 in a row. So yeah, we gotta get the job done.
Yeah,
and hopefully with us living in the same state, like the conditions won't be as funky. The old greasy ball, and just a little short trip up the road. Just feckin' win. As Connor McKenna would say.
4:30 Saturday. So it's a Saturday here. I was talking about how it was the Sunday the whole time. No, it's actually 4:30 on Saturday. Day before Reckling Community Cup, by the way. Sunday, 28th of July, Everton Wolves. See you there.
But did they change? You've been saying for like 6 weeks.
I know.
Like, oh, God.
I know. Maybe I just had it in my mind, oh, yeah, we're just stuck to Sunday afternoon games now. No, it's Saturday afternoon, 4:30, People's First Stadium. So that is, that's going to be, it's going to be a big game. Obviously, like I mentioned before, Suns are going to be without some pretty key players. Turk Miller, Ainsworth's not going to be there. Davies obviously not. Roses will be back. They'll have a few people in and out of the squad.
I do like the consistency of these Saturday and Sunday games, because that was one of my weird tinfoil hat theories early on in the season, that we were playing heaps of Thursdays and Sundays.
Yep.
And it was just absolutely causing mayhem on our structure, weekly structure, or what do you do as a team? So maybe there's more in that than I thought.
And who knows about, hopefully round 24 will be announced this week or soon enough, because Brisbane Essendon could be a Friday or a Saturday night game back into those prime time slots. Who knows?
Well, I think it's hard to look at because Melbourne Collingwood, they're both out of the running at this point in time. Bulldogs Giants, it probably is the biggest game, but who knows? Things can change very quickly.
Certainly can. Well, quick look ahead against the Suns. Obviously, this is another one of our double-up games this year. If we just go back to when we played them earlier, that was the game where we blew out all the knees. We had Logan Morris come in. We had Bruce come in. But a huge, emphatic win as well. One of our best wins for the year. With circumstances and everything as well.
Battle of Brisbane, as it were. Because that was just before, so... When was that? That was round 10, round 11? No, it might have been before then. Because that was sort of the beginning of this massive run, right?
Well, no. So it was round 8. Then we had the draw. draw against the Crows. We smacked Richmond the week after. Then we had the loss against the Hawthorn before the bye, and then it's just been wins since.
Yeah, so it was the game after that Giants one. So, yeah, round 8. But since then, we've only lost one game. So it really was kind of the start of us being a new team.
Yeah.
Not a shit team. Basically.
Well, it certainly was the start of us being a new team in the terms of we suddenly had all these kids playing as well.
Yep. And, that Hawthorn game, when you put it into context now, not that terrible. I mean, it was bloody annoying.
It felt terrible at the time, didn't it?
Yeah. Felt really annoying. Stupid Jack Gunston.
Yeah, so I think I don't think it's going to be the blowout that we sort of... I mean, we only won by 6 goals, but it felt bigger than that at the time, and maybe it was just the context of all the injuries and all that sort of stuff, and coming off that huge loss against the Giants. But I don't think it'll be... I think it'll be definitely closer this time round.
Yeah, it's just important to make sure that we show up in the midfield and clamp and that sort of thing. And we've got a few more tools in the toolbox, I think. So
yeah,
hopefully there aren't going to be situations where like Flanders is like running off the chain and Raoul's killing everybody. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll all do all those things.
It remains to be seen. We will see that 4:30 Saturday at People's First Stadium. Is there anything else you really want to touch on before we chuff off for the week and celebrate our third on the ladder position?
I got one little thing to worth note. That's a sentence. Why do teams not like sing the club song very vigorously these days?
I think there are certainly times where teams do. But I think, I mean, I don't know. Not being an elite AFL footballer, it might just feel like a chore or part of the job at the end of a game where you're cooked, and maybe it's the last thing you feel like doing, and maybe it is not antiquated, but just one of those things that, like, I'm sure there are moments where singing the song will have a little bit more gusto. Like, surely after a grand final, that's the best you ever sing your song, or a hard-fought win against, a rival or something like that. But, more often than not, it might just feel like a part of the process rather than a celebratory thing.
Yeah, because it seems a little bit disappointing as much as anything. That it's like, it seems like it's something that has kind of dipped over time.
Yeah.
And you sort of like, you get a lot of like wooing, not a lot of yelling, bit whatever. But like, that was one of the things I noticed. The Bulldogs against Geelong, they really belted it. And I was like, oh, that's scary. Because I mean, I remember like playing football at UQ, like it was like the bloody highlight. If you were away, you would let the other teams know about it. Like you would want them to hear through the walls. And
maybe that's part of the Dogs as well, because the Dogs, like the Cats have had the wood over the Dogs for the last however many games as well. So that game probably did have a bit of extra feeling, and it had the context of keeping the Dogs in the finals race. It was a big win from them as well, like pretty comprehensive. So it was a little bit of extra investment in that one from them, I guess.
Yeah, it's just something I've had my eye on for a little bit and been like, can you just like do it properly? Because it's fun. Or at least it was fun back in 2010 or whatever, 2011, whenever I was playing football at UQ.
Oh, I've got one for you. Obviously, Collingwood with the decline at the moment. And, people would think I'd be happy about watching them falter and potentially miss out on finals. And I am, but at the same time, I'm still, like, amazingly jealous of what they did and took from us last year. So, they can miss out on finals, but at the end of the day, they still got the premiership to look back on. So, lucky them. Would you consider the 2023 Collingwood team and the 2018 team... Would you consider that all as part of the same sort of era, or would you consider 2018 and then they dipped out and then popped back up as two separate little windows? Because largely the list is the same. Like they had the same core. Obviously, it's not.
I'd say identical. It would and this is probably not rocket science, but it's probably more akin to the 2008 Hawthorn and then the other one. Yep. But they just don't have, like, because they're on the arse end of it with like a lot of their players, they don't have the longevity to go for a lot. So yes, it's the same, but it's the withering death of it now. And I kind of said it before. It's spitefully. I was like, I don't know whether Nick Dacos is going to get near another premiership for a while.
Well, he might.
Is it?
You never know.
I don't know. I think they're like look at their players that are all past it. Basically, you've got and I say past it in terms of they're in the older demographic. So it's like you can't really rely on Pendlebury forever. You can't rely on Sidebottom. You can't rely on Tom Mitchell. And then they've just kind of got dudes around that it's just they're not working. So maybe Craig McRae will knock something together, but I think they're a bit cooked.
Yeah, this year anyway, it seems that way. I mean, there's still 5 games for them to. Who knows? They might go on a tear and bring it right back. But with the footy they're playing at the moment, it looks unlikely. That's not to say that they're completely out of it, because I mean, Collingwood, we know what they can do. Yeah, it was just interesting because I thought they just sort of, they flashed up in 2022. New coach, made a prelim, lost by a point, and then obviously came through, won the premiership last year. But before that, they had a few years where they sort of made first round of finals, maybe second, but didn't do any damage or didn't play finals. But they were in a grand final in 2018. And I was just wondering, it's like, well, did they just flash up, pinch a grand final and disappear, or was it all part of the same run? And now I'm just sort of comparing it to us, who's obviously been top 4 the last 5-6 years, nothing to show for it yet. It's just it was an interesting little thought experiment I had.
Yeah, I was talking to my brothers a little bit about tempting fate in a bad way. That if the Lions don't win a grand final, will they be the greatest team not to win a grand final in terms of the prolonged amount of time at the top and the prolonged quality? Because there have probably been better teams or better seasons of teams where they haven't won a premiership, but in terms of 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20, that amount of time.
Yeah.
They need to win one so that they don't become that.
I mean, yes, 100%. And, that was the question mark on Geelong for a while until they did get that one in 22. The Bulldogs, the Saints in, the late 2000s, and Adelaide during that time were all really, really good teams as well that just couldn't get past Geelong at the time or St Kilda. And, St Kilda's got nothing to show for it from some pretty dominant football during that time. So there's been teams...
Yeah, but even then, that's only been a stretch of about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's 6 years is a long time.
I know.
Of the same group of players, because even you can look at the 22 Geelong team and go, well, it still had Hawkins and Selwood that were there that won premierships.
Yeah.
So there's still vestments of that, whereas there's nothing for us.
I know. No, I hear you, man. It's my biggest worry, and I'm sure it is the biggest worry for a lot of Lions fans, is that we're going to go through this period of dominance with nothing to show for it, and then slide back down the ladder.
Just to slide aside, how good's that Hugh McCluggage deal looking right now?
Pretty good. And we've managed to hold on to players we spoke about it last week. Loman was this close to leaving. The days that I was having this chat with Ziggy over Instagram, he referenced the go home 5. And it's just I think those days that fingers crossed are behind us now. We're actually managing to re-sign our big name players and attract players Charlie Cameron, Neil, Danaher, Dunkley, all those sort of stuff. So I think vastly different in terms of culture and things now, and hopefully we've built ourselves up for a period of sustained success, but it's hard to do. Geelong and Sydney.
We've had a period of sustained success. It's obviously not the ultimate success, but that's kind of more important, really. We want obviously to win a grand final, but it's getting the club in good nick so that you can kind of rotate through. Because I think, the hard reset, hard rebuild is not a route that you really want to do. And I don't think it's necessarily one you have to. Because if you have decent structures in place of having not all of your players all die at the same time, like what happened to us in 2003, Yeah, it's sort of all 2003, 4, 5, where they all just fell off. Like,
Yeah.
I think we talked about that rebuild, or the fact that we completely fell off the face of the planet a little while ago, and I can't remember if I kind of corrected myself because I said something along the lines of like those premierships. I think what I meant to say, and I don't remember what I said, so what the fuck is going on? But I think what I meant to say is that I don't think that like cataclysmic rebuild was necessarily due to the premierships. They happened, regardless of that, because all the players are going to get old anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, we won the premierships and that's why we completely like tanked, because in those those years we still had some pretty high draft picks and stuff. Like we had a number 1 draft pick and then Jonathan Brown, and so it was sort of like we didn't really completely lose our basket. But I don't know, kind of getting off the boil. But I mean, in terms of players that have left, it's basically just been Dan McStay.
Yeah, and you'd have to imagine Dev and or Jackson Pryor at the end of this year, but they're not exactly stable 22, 23 players at the moment. And you've just touched on it again. We're going to get another top 5 pick with Levi. So, hopefully. It's hard to do. Like Geelong and Sydney seem to have been able to do it. Hawthorn couldn't do it. Richmond haven't been able to do it. So they just sort of go up, get the flags, go back down. So it's hard to do. It's obviously really hard to do.
Yeah. I just feel like we haven't exactly had to invest all that much in terms of like topping up whilst we're up there. We've been able to, and we went through it a few weeks ago. The players that we've drafted have had like such a good impact on the team. And we've seen it really more so this year than we have in others. But in others, Wilmot and Lohman and Dev Rob, and they've all been there. Yeah. Fletcher, Ashcroft, like they're all coming in and taking the positions of people that are probably not going to be there. So it's almost like a kind of rolling 22 that's kind of working.
Well,
obviously you're sitting there going like, oh, when Harris and Joe Danaher or whatever retire, like what the hell are we going to do?
Yeah, there's definitely some questions further down the line, but I guess that's why we're in the get a flag now market and deal with the repercussions as they fall. And we may or may not have a new coach at that stage to see what we see, but yeah, it's not today's problem, but it will be a problem at some point.
I just think the club's in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
largely.
No, I agree.
And I don't think it's in much more of a Geelong or Sydney style shape at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right.
I don't think you could necessarily say that about, like, it probably wasn't even a thing back in 2005, where you're looking at like the shape of a club and being like, yeah, it was just every team went out trying to do shit, and some of them sucked and some of them were good. It like you weren't looking at a club sustainability model because we're just so chuffed to have success at that point in time. So, and Sydney hadn't really done it. Geelong hadn't really done it. They were, building, but so if we don't, then that's really bad management.
It's hard to do. We all we can do is see how it unfolds over the next however many years. But yeah, like I said, not today's problem. We've got the Suns to worry about and the rest of the season, and we'll go from there.
Let's smash them.